Today I'm joined by Bridgit Danner, who will be talking to us about the importance of detoxing for better mental and physical health. Let me briefly introduce her before I bring her on. Bridgit Danner has been a licensed acupuncturist since 2004 and a certified functional diagnostic practitioner since 2015. She has given over 12,000 treatments in her career. Her interest in natural health grew from an interest in protecting the environment. Even as a child, she was donating her allowance to Greenpeace and writing cosmetic companies to ask about their practices. While busy running a busy integrative wellness center in Portland, Oregon, she developed an environmental illness due to toxic mold in her home. Already experienced in hormone management and nutrition, she became acutely aware of the powerful impact of the environment on her health. She and her family lost their house and everything in it to toxic mold, and they moved 1,000 miles to the Arizona desert to heal. Bridgit now educates about toxins and detox through her online community and coaches women on how to detoxify through a functional approach. So, hi, Bridgit. Thank you for joining me for the Mental Health Break podcast. I'm so excited to talk to you today.
Likewise. I think we're going to have a great conversation today.
Totally. Your story just really fascinated me about just the process of detoxing, but also your own personal journey. I just shared some background information about you, but can you tell me a little bit about your background as an acupuncturist and then also coaching? And then we can get into your story later about how you ended up with getting interested in detoxing.
Sure. It's all pretty interrelated. I was, for whatever reason, really interested in the environment as a young child and concerned about environmental issues. So I originally studied art in college, but then I was like, this isn't the right degree to change the world, and I want to do that. So I was looking at going into environmental law, or I was just kind of looking around, but I was pretty personally interested in natural medicine. So I ended up going to Chinese medicine school with a vision that when I graduated, I would also teach classes about the environment and stuff like that. So then I went into practice, and I was doing the typical acupuncturist things of treating pain and stress and digestion, and it wasn't really as focused on the environment. And I was living in Portland, Oregon, which is pretty environmentally aware as well. And then I got sick. I was sick for a long time and working on my health with nutrition and, different lifestyle modifications. But I just was kept getting sick until I finally got this mold illness diagnosis. And you asked about coaching. In the midst of that, I guess after my son was born, I got my first coach to kind of help me cope with my own stress after having him and being a business owner. And I got really fascinated by coaching as a modality and online world. So I had this clinic practicing acupuncture, but I started trying to kind of move into the online world of coaching. And a little ironically, when I started working more at home, was when I got sicker because my home was making me sick. So my story has all these things that are intertwined. And in a way, I think it's been kind of a blessing in disguise, because I really am passionate about teaching people about toxicity. So once I got so sick and I had to heal myself, I really shifted my focus back to my original thing, which was teaching a non-toxic lifestyle, but now have this whole body of knowledge on advanced detoxification as well.
Environmental toxins are so rampant right now in our lives, right? Not only by the products that we put on our body, but for you, it was mold exposure. I've heard a lot about mold exposure, but I don't know too much about what are the symptoms? How do you know it's mold? What did you go through? Just tell me a little bit about your personal journey with your illness and how you identified it to be mold, and what you ended up doing about it.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing for people to get on their radar, because it's still not very well talked about, and a lot of the symptoms overlap with other things. So you can go on, I went on 8 years without knowing. It's a long time to be having different symptoms. So for me, I was having a regular period, anxiety, insomnia, we certainly overlap. A lot of like IBS gut issues. Let's see, fatigue, sick a lot often. What I would say for me in my early stages, getting sick really often with like recurrent colds and flus was big for me, and then like chronic back pain. And I saw a lot of people to try to address the back pain, and it really wasn't going to go away because I had this chronic inflammation in my body from mold, but nobody thought that could be it or whatever. They just weren't aware. So I got kind of put in a category sometimes, like a lot of people do, of, oh, well, you're just stressed, or like, oh, well, like, it's kind of on you. Like, there's nothing we can do about it, which doesn't feel good when you're already trying so hard, eating really well and doing all the right things. So that's another thing I'll say to people, like, if you're doing all the right things, something isn't right, you're still dragging, tired, you're anxious all the time, just things won't resolve. I think it's often a toxicity issue. And it could be mold, or it could be, heavy metals or some other toxic load. We also make biotoxins from like things like dental infections and infections in our gut. So there's lots of ways we can be toxic, and mold, it will affect every body system. So it can be, mood, gut, skin issues, asthma, runny nose, eyes are irritated. Even if, say, you're in a house and there's 5 people in the family, one could have no symptoms, one could have gut symptoms, one could have more mood symptoms, kids can have ADD. So everybody can be different, and then it makes it pretty hard to recognize a commonality when everybody's experiencing different symptoms.
Is there a test that you can take that literally will say you have mold toxicity in your body?
Yeah, there are now. So the mold produces a lot of different compounds, but one thing that it produces is called mycotoxins. So there's a urine test or a blood test for mycotoxins, and there are probably about 4 different types of home testing you can do as well. So if you suspect your home or your vehicle or your work, really environmental illness means not just treating your body, you have to also address the environment. So if you think it's a current exposure, I actually will tend to have people test the home first, then the body. It doesn't totally matter the order, but whatever the location is sort of the primary cause, right? So sometimes I just say, we'll just start there.
Well, it's interesting that you said the more you work from home, the sicker you got, and COVID has made us work from home the entire year. And so a lot of people might be having these symptoms. And I think that's why your story intrigued me, and that a lot of people are home more, and they might be feeling sick, they might be feeling anxious, but there's so much going on outside of us that it's hard to point it out and say it might be an environmental toxin in my home.
It really is. And there's some people will say, like, well, if you go on vacation and you feel better, then it's your home. But when you're on vacation, you generally feel better. Like, everyone feels better. So I never had an experience where I would come back and forth and feel like, oh, it must be my home. Like, it was never clear to me. We didn't have any visible mold. We did have a musty basement. And I was thankful that finally, like, I got some encouragement to test and check that. So yeah, homes can be, this is depending, how can I say, lots of homes can potentially be moldy. The main reason I moved to Phoenix was because it's drier. There is mold here. I still run into it. Our older construction with cinder block tends to be moldy. So if you go to an old church or old school, you see it here sometimes, but a lot less because things dry so quickly. I used to live in Oregon. Obviously, nothing dries quickly there all winter long. So humidity is a factor. But old home or new, if there was a construction issue, if there was a leak that wasn't handled correctly, if the gutters aren't draining correctly, if there's water in the crawl space, there's just a lot of like construction type issues that I can say for myself, like, I didn't care about any of that stuff before when it came to a home. But that stuff really matters for your health. So yeah, it's pretty common. I think like 12 to 50% of buildings have some kind of moisture or water damage type issue. So yeah, it's worth looking into, especially if you have symptoms or someone in the family does.
I know I used to go to school in Northern California, which is close to Oregon, and I'd come back home. My clothes smelled like mold. We all
Oh,
smelled musty. Nothing like I didn't notice it while I was there, but as soon as I would open my suitcase, my sister would be like, "What is that smell?" And when you're living in it, you don't really notice, right? That mustiness that can happen in
yeah.
a place like Oregon or Northern California.
Yeah, so places like that, just as people are wondering, well, what can I do? You can run a dehumidifier in your home. You can, run fans. If you think of places like the tropics, they're also very humid. You need to just keep airflow going. Don't stuff the closets full of stuff, because that's going to kind of be a breeding ground for mold. And not every type of mold is toxic, but because the indoor environment is this kind of controlled environment, it's not like a forest, there isn't as much like competition for the molds, and it creates this like unnatural kind of environment where there's only like a dozen toxic molds out of probably thousands, but those unfortunately those ones can tend to grow indoors.
That's so interesting. So, since we're talking about detoxing today, it's often it's a trending topic, right? Especially around the springtime. And I also hear a lot of, but although it is trending and a lot of people, celebrities focus on it and promote it, but there are a lot of practitioners that talk about how unnecessary detoxes are. So it can lead to confusion for people that are interested in learning more. So as a detox coach, what's your opinion about our body's need to detox?
Yeah, I like talking about this because it is kind of like a myth busting thing. So I think the argument that we don't need to detox comes from, our bodies are built to detox. We have our kidneys and our liver, our breath, our skin. Like, there's a lot of ways we detox. And if we're getting good nutrition, we're getting good sleep, we should be able to keep up with toxins. However, we generally don't get good nutrition, we don't get good sleep, and we've created all these new toxicants in our environment that didn't even exist before. So I think you mentioned as we started how many toxins we're exposed to. And one good example is if you get up in the morning and you do some things for an hour before you go to work. You're taking a shower, there's toxins in the water. You're using shampoo, and if it's not super non-toxic, then you're getting exposed to fragrance chemicals and stuff. Then you put all this stuff on your body, like there could be aluminum in your deodorant or lead in your lipstick, and you're putting it all over yourself, and it can absorb. Maybe then you're eating some coffee that isn't organic and has mold in it, and then you're using a creamer that has some processed fats in it. So it just piles on and on and on, and that's a lot, and our bodies can't always keep up anymore. And then you start to see symptoms. We talked about mold symptoms, but more common kind of toxicity symptoms could also be can't lose weight or gaining weight, which a lot of people complain about. It's 2/3 of Americans now. Being puffy and having swollen joints, having chronic joint pain, headaches, low energy, brain fog. We tend to just kind of say, well, that's adult life, and it's not. That's modern life because that's kind of the environment we've created. So I'm a big fan of detox. I think we're always exposed, even when we try to reduce that load. The load is still there. I test clients for toxins who are living very clean lives, and there's still stuff coming out in their urine that is jet fuel, pesticides, all sorts of stuff. We can't even figure out where it came from. It's just around us. It's in our air outside too. So we're definitely being exposed in ways we never really have been before, while we're also having emotional stresses. I'm sure you teach is hard on the body, electromagnetic stress, blue light. It's just a whole different world we live in. So I'm a big fan of just constantly supporting detox when you're doing it gently. So it can be as simple as like drinking lemon water in the morning, or dry brushing your skin, or doing some deep breathing is actually detoxifying. So when you say, well, or not you, but when people say we don't need to detox, like, we do need to detox. We need to support and make sure everything's moving, make sure we're not constipated, make sure we're drinking a lot of water, make sure we're getting movement. So it doesn't have to be complicated, especially if you're not super symptomatic. If you're a person who's active and sleeps well and has good relationships, you probably feel better because you're sort of supporting your body's own health. But if you are experiencing some symptoms you don't want, and most of us are, I'm a big fan. I think a lot of things can change with detox. Like, you're going to age much better, have more energy, less pain. And if you want to do more techniques, there's more and more you can do. So you can start learning about doing a castor oil pack, or just so there's more tools as people are interested. And then reducing your toxic load. So changing your makeup, changing the kind of coffee you buy, making sure that there's less coming in is also really important.
Reducing our load is really, really huge, because we don't realize, like you said, just in that morning shower routine, we're getting exposed probably with our toothpaste, with our shower gel, with our shampoo, with our water, with so many perfume, so many different ways that we can expose ourselves. And then we're walking out the door, we're probably eating a lot of processed foods that have pesticides and toxins.
Exactly.
And our filters do get backed up. I mean, I always mention the analogy to my pool filter, and that when I love washing my pool filter myself, because it just reminds me of how much can get clogged into our own internal organ filters, right? Like our kidneys and our liver. My pool gets clogged up after like a heavy storm in Arizona, and you have to clean it all out. And sometimes that's how I see detoxing. But like I said, there's a lot of confusion about how to do it. But like you said, it could be as simple as breathing, or dry brushing, or reducing the load. So how do you feel about, like, before we get into that, what are some ways that we can detox for better mental and physical health? Can you give us some examples besides the body brushing? You mentioned castor oil packs. What are some other ways that we can detox?
Castor oil packs I'll focus on a bit longer, because one thing that's really important for mental health is gut health. So we make neurotransmitters in the gut, and then we detoxify a lot of things through the gut, like excess estrogen or used estrogen. So gut health is super important for mental health. It's not the only factor, but castor oil packs can help you have bowel movements, is one thing they can do. In a very gentle way. So we have some resources on our website about that. There's a type of pack I really like that's a lot less messy to use. You can even put a little essential oils in there. You can use digestive ones, or you could use something like lavender, which actually like increases GABA reception in the body, so it's calming. And then it gets absorbed with that kind of hot environment of the castor oil pack. So I'm a big fan of like kind of layering treatment. So if you're going to take the time to do some self-care, like maybe you're doing your castor oil pack with essential oils, like while you listen to a meditation or do some breath work. And then maybe you're lying in the sunshine as well. So you can do a lot at once, but definitely make sure your bowels are moving. For good mental health, doing things like good probiotic, or eating a lot of fiber. A lot of different types of fiber will feed your microbiome. And microbiome, again, is important for the correct neurotransmitter production. So avoiding like simple sugars and carbs, and getting a lot more complex food into you. I'm a big fan of fish oil. It's really needed for the brain. It kind of protects the brain. It's also needed to keep down inflammation in the gut. So you can either be eating some clean fish, clean like wild fish a few times a week, or you can be taking some fish oil. So those are a few things for the gut. Talking about mold, it can really affect mental health. I think it's probably an underdiagnosed cause of some mental health issues. So if you are experiencing some like kind of unresolved, or I was just listening to a lecture about this, if you feel like your anxiety doesn't have like a known stressor and you've been trying to work with a practitioner and it's just not coming down, that can be the stress response you're in from your body being toxic. So just something to kind of keep in mind, that actually being in that physical stress of illness gets you into that fight or flight state. Then you can feel like you have persistent anxiety, you can have mood swings, or it can go more to depression and depersonalization. So there's a lot of tools to remove mold. We talked a little bit about like dry brushing, lemon water. There's supplements called binders that help bind up that mold in the body, and it can bind other toxins like heavy metals as well. Getting more antioxidants can be really helpful. So obviously you kind of want to know what you're dealing with before going there, but I just want to share that there are tools to detox that can support mental health as you work on other kind of ways to support mental health.
You mentioned binders. Are there some safe binders that we can try initially, or should we do that when we're working with a trained professional?
Well, one simple one is activated charcoal. It's pretty affordable and you can probably find it at your local store. You don't want to take it can bind beneficial nutrients and minerals, so you don't want to just like take it constantly. But you mentioned like your pool filter getting overloaded. And one time people that often do think they want to detox is when they've overdone it, right? So if you just had a long weekend with your girlfriends and there was a lot of drinking and a lot of cheese and a lot of, just eating crap, often when you're done, you're like, oh man, I need to lighten up. I need to detox. Charcoal can be helpful when you're hungover, if you feel like you got some food poisoning, if you just ate a weird combination of foods and you're not feeling good. It just kind of can absorb some of that toxicity that's flared up.
So just everyone, like I've heard that you should do it before like a major dental procedure. It really helps with all the stuff that the work that they do. Just take activated charcoal before doing that. That could help. But I do want to recommend that people work with a trained professional before doing anything. I mean, we're just making suggestions here, right?
Yeah, and you're not supposed to take it around medication. So yeah, like don't take it willy-nilly, but just to kind of give an example of one that's, fairly simple. That's one that you maybe want to get familiar with.
Yes. How do you feel about colonics and those hydrocolon cleanses? How are those comparing with like a routine detoxing?
Yeah, I personally have only done a colon hydrotherapy one time. I'm not against it. I think it can really clean out a lot of blockages and inflammation in the colon. It does kind of a little bit mess with your microbiome to put in water going the wrong way, so to speak. But I think the people who are proponents are like kind of say that, the benefit outweighs that. It's been used with a lot of different cancer therapies or just constipation. I think you were going to ask me about coffee enemas. I don't do coffee enemas for kind of colon cleansing, but it is sort of a colon treatment, but it's more for the liver actually. And that's also when I say, don't start that willy-nilly, because if you have certain health conditions, that might not be a fit for you. So look into it and understand it more and have a practitioner. But it can be a great way to detox because it helps your liver make glutathione, which is a major detox antioxidant, and cleanse your blood. So it sounds kind of old-fashioned and really weird to certain people. I probably wouldn't have tried it unless I was so sick that I was like, I'll try anything. And it helps me a lot. So I still do it about once a week.
So once a week when you're trying to get healthy is okay to do coffee enemas?
Yeah, if you're really sick, I'll have people, if they're willing to do them more like 2 or 3 times a week. But now just kind of for maintenance, I usually do it about once a week.
I know you have a great video about how to do coffee enemas, and that's kind of how I got interested in what you were doing. Can you explain a little bit about what coffee enemas are so that it's not just drinking coffee? But obviously somebody that might know anything about enemas knows that it's not just drinking it. There's other ways of using it. Can you just explain it briefly and then let us know like some of the benefits like you just mentioned?
Yeah, a lot of people are like, well, why can't I just drink coffee? But it's just it's different. So you're using a light roast coffee and you use in like a bag or a bucket with a tube, and you just put it like a little bit up your butt, basically. It's just a means of absorption, right? And there's lots of like suppositories and different ways we use this as a medicine that just kind of aren't in favor or, aren't popular in the US that are actually still pretty popular, like in Europe and stuff. So it's interesting. It's not that crazy or messy or anything because you can control the liquid. So you get some of this light roast kind of strong coffee, and I have instructions on it. And it's like absorbed into your colon, and there's some like portal veins going to your liver. So there's like a direct, I'm going to say, connection to the blood flow to your liver when you're getting the coffee in through this like very kind of permeable area in the lower bowels. And there's a compound in the coffee, I think it's called caffeic acid, that stimulates this glutathione production in the liver. And I have to be honest, like I do a lot of research and a lot of techniques. There isn't a lot of research still really on coffee enema. I wish there were more. So I just want to be honest, like if you look at hyperbaric oxygen or sauna or some other things I promote, there's a lot of good research on it. Coffee enema is a little bit more anecdotal. There isn't as much study on it or evidence on it. But there's a little bit. And for when I was like my sickest, so when you have toxin, okay, here, let me back up a bit. One way you detoxify is with this antioxidant glutathione. But when toxins are more than your body can handle, the glutathione starts to be depleted. So you're in this constant state of inflammation. So the liver obviously has a bunch of blood that pumps through it. And when you're doing the coffee enema, it's encouraging the manufacture of the glutathione, and then the blood is getting cleaned. That's kind of the premise. You do get a little like caffeine feeling that makes you feel good, but it's not the same as drinking it. It's just a different feeling that I think you have to try to understand. And I usually say if you want to try it, keep in mind the first few times you're not going to quite know what you're doing. You're going to use too much liquid. You're going to like end up running to the bathroom probably because you're just not used to it. So you have to get used to the technique and then kind of get used to the feeling. And do you like it? And do you find it helpful? Yeah, a lot of people are like, well, why wouldn't I just drink coffee or whatever? That just, I don't know. It's like something you have to just kind of do to understand. And I think maybe people say that because they don't really want to try it, which you certainly don't have to. But I've been doing it now for probably 4 or 5 years. So I'm obviously a fan of it.
I was actually recommended it by a doctor as well. And initially it was a very scary process. I've never done anything like that before. And I do want to say that you can't just use any coffee. You can't just go buy it from the store and just decide to make it. I had to specially order my coffee, and it has to be organic. It has to be pure. And just the whole process has to be very clean. So there's some stress around that, because if, like you said, if you don't know what you're doing initially, it can be very intimidating. But I know that a lot of cancer centers recommend twice a day, even for people that are really sick, and depending on the stage, doing coffee enemas even twice a day. So I had to do some more research myself just to learn about what is this thing, and is this going to cause damage? Is this going to be harmful? But there are some, like you said, anecdotal research on how beneficial it is for people.
Yeah. I don't have people generally. I have some clients who've been doing it every day just on their own, and they just love it. I think it can be a little irritating to your tissue to do so often, and you can get a little like dependent on it for energy. So in a sense, you could do it every day, especially dealing with something like cancer, and you're working with a practitioner who is a fan of it. But I would say, it's definitely not. It takes like, if you've done it, it takes like 45 minutes. It's not quick. So, if you're really sick, it may be something you want in your routine. And if not, if I'm like flared up from some toxicity, I'll do it more. But otherwise, I'll maybe just do it like on a Saturday morning. And I actually find it kind of relaxing, and I'll be like doing my weekly planner. I think people envision it like there's body fluids everywhere and all that, and it's not really like that. Once you're good at it, it's very controlled.
Right. And I think for the people that are doing it as a cancer treatment, it is done twice a day at a center for a short period of time. So they might go in, like I know that in Mexico, they have that as part of their treatment plan. So when my aunt was going through her own treatment, I was learning more about that as well, and that she was going to Mexico for treatments. And I think that was before we knew about coffee enemas, but I know she was that was a part of some of the treatments that they had. I don't think that she was getting it at that time, but I've since learned more about it, and it's fascinating information, and it's just a different technique, and it's just about knowing different types of styles and see what works for you. For some people, it could be doing a coffee enema, others could be a juice cleanse. So if people are not into something as strict as a coffee enema or invasive, can people use certain foods or supplements, and like there's juicing that people do? Can you talk a little bit about foods and supplements as a way of detoxing?
Yeah, when I had a clinic, I would do more like group detoxes. I don't really focus on food detox as much now, because we focus a little bit more on these other aspects of detox. But not that food and juicing isn't important. It's just sort of we've changed our own focus. Yeah, just even like a diet like the Whole30, right? It's like all real food, and you're avoiding processed foods and additives and stuff. People can find that incredibly cleansing, because they've taken all that toxic load of all the additives and stuff out. So something as simple as that can be a big deal. I mean, sometimes people aren't aware of how much junk they're eating until they intentionally say, I'm just eating whole food. And it really lets your body recover, and you're getting more nutrients from the food when it's whole food. You're getting that fiber for the microbiome, like we talked about earlier. So that can be really simple, or dedicating to adding a salad a day to your routine, or a green smoothie. And there's lots of recipes online where you're putting in spinach and berries and almond milk and protein powder. Like, it can be pretty simple. I make a drink, and we have this on the site, that's like a morning juice that's lemon, cilantro, honey, and a little bit of greens, and then you strain it. So it's more of like a juice than a smoothie, but it's very detoxifying and alkalizing, and it only takes a couple minutes to make. So that can be a nice thing in the morning to give you a little energy, just kind of clear you out, get hydrated. So yeah, if your diet isn't great and you kind of know it, I think it's fantastic to start with a detox. Sometimes, like, I'll do kind of a Monday to Thursday detox, so to speak, where you're not having alcohol, you're not having any sweets, you're just eating really clean. And if it's your work week, you're not as tempted to get into stuff. So even just dedicating like a portion of your week to be cleaner, so then it's not every day glass of wine and dessert type thing, can be a good place to start.
What do you think about celery juice? I know that that just took over last year and it was everywhere. I don't hear about it so much now, but what do you think about celery juice and all the benefits that they were saying that it had?
Yeah, it's such a hot debate. I mean, I think that on the con side, people are like, celery doesn't have much nutrition. It doesn't really make sense. I've tried straight celery with me, not have celery juice. It's like major bowel mover for me. But I've had people say they really like it and they find it quite detoxifying and they become like addicted to it. So Anthony Williams, who is the medical medium who put that out, he's kind of downloading his medical intuition. So I kind of appreciate it. I think some things he says are really interesting. He's really into like a heavy fruit diet, and I'm not as interested in that. So I feel like parts of what he says I find interesting, and I kind of appreciate someone who's like coming at things from a different perspective. I have friends in the functional medicine space who are not happy with him, like he's disseminating, misinformation and stuff like that. So, but I think some people have embraced some things he's done and seen changes because at least they're eating real food. They're cutting down on, he's pretty against like heavy fats and meats and stuff, which, mostly in the US, we do need to cut down on that stuff. We do need more fruits and vegetables. So not a straight answer, but that's what I think.
Yeah, I mean that's what I've heard, both sides of it. Some people really love it and they swear by it, and they talk about all the benefits they're seeing, clear skin, just more energy. And then there are other people that are just like, it does nothing for you and it's just a waste. And I think it's
Yeah.
just a matter of trying different things and seeing what works for you, right?
Yeah, I was just going to say that we all respond differently to different things. So sometimes you just have to try and kind of like with the coffee enema, it's like, don't get like so attached to like, this has to go well, or like, just have fun with it. It's just life, just like experiment. I've tried so many weird health things, and some of them have been a giant bomb and some of them have been really great and I still do them. So I think as long as, like you said, if you're elderly, you're on medication, you've got a complicated condition, you may want to get some second opinions on what you try. But certain things like are, like more approachable to try, like lemon water or dry brushing or what have you, and you're not really going to have any crazy side effects.
Well, one thing that really happened to me last year, and to this day, I don't know if it was COVID or if it was the lemon water, but I was trying lemon water in the morning with warm lemon water, and I ended up getting super, super sick. And I was very congested. There's a lot of phlegm in my acupuncturist was telling me I needed to stop the lemon water, and I was getting these horrible splitting headaches. And once I stopped the lemon water, I ended up feeling better. But I'm also strange in that I have a reaction to too much citrus. So when I was, I think, overdoing it with the lemon water, and it was too much citrus for my system. Because I've tried this before. In Arizona, we have those bitter oranges that are everywhere, right? We love it in my culture. We spray it on, we squeeze it on salads. And so I decided one year that I was going to just throw a whole peeled one in my smoothies and have that every single day. I ended up getting super sick from that. And that's when I ended up realizing I have a sensitivity to too much citrus. So for some people, they might react to the lemon water.
Well, this is a great example. Yeah. Because like, to me, I'm like, oh, that's so simple. But you're right. Some people have a sensitivity to that. We just had an Ayurvedic practitioner on a call and she was talking about lemon and lime. And someone typed in like, well, what if you're allergic to those? What can you do instead? So you're right. Even something as simple as that could be, I just want to share, and it may not be true in your case, but sometimes when we start to detoxify or we have some change in our life, I just was listening to this lecture yesterday that we're like full of viral material, actually, way more than we think. So we think like we're just exposed to a virus and then we get sick, but 9% of the complete DNA inside of us is viral DNA living on us. Oh. So we know about like the microbiome, we have all this bacteria, but we have a lot of viruses too. So sometimes when we are cleaning up our diet or going on vacation, or like something's changing in our life, our body is kind of shedding some of the virus, and there's some change or die off of that too, and you get symptomatic. So when you first said it, I thought, well, maybe she was just sort of detoxing so much that he was getting a reaction. But maybe for you, it's more of an allergy.
Well, I have had that. What do they call it? A detox flu, where you feel really like I did that once where I was eating very clean for a week, and a couple of days into it, my head just felt so heavy. I just wanted to put it down, and I just felt really lethargic. And the person that was helping me through the detox was telling me, this is expected. You're just going through this detoxification and releasing a lot of things. And sure enough, a couple of days later, it all went away, and I was fine. So that's something that people need to expect as well. And I used to be really sick with endometriosis, and I was recommended to do castor oil packs. And they seem like they're really doing nothing. You're putting this piece of cloth over your belly, but not only is it relaxing that you can just sit back for 30 minutes and just allow this to absorb into your body, but I started noticing some weird stuff coming out of me from that process. And that's another thing with detoxing. We might emit weird odor for a while until it all clears out. You might have skin eruptions until all of that clears out. Are there some other things that you've noticed that people should expect if they're going through a detox process?
Yeah. We actually made an ebook about it called The Side Effects of Change. It's mostly about taking supplements and what you might expect, because I think what tends to happen is when we're not anticipating any negative reaction and then it happens, we're like, oh, I'm doing the wrong thing. This is bad. But really, it is like a detoxification process. So you were doing that clean diet. So sometimes you take out the load of alcohol and coffee and all those things. Now your body can your liver can start working on other things. So sometimes it is clearing out viruses, or you're losing weight, which your fat has a bunch of toxins, or you're dealing with some chemicals stored in the body. So now they're getting processed, which is great, but there's different phases of detox. And if you're not keeping up with like the later phases of detox, you can let some of that can kind of come back in and you can feel inflamed. So headaches, some irritability, constipation, loose stool, bloating. Those are usually the most common, maybe a little bit more pain or inflammation. So there's a solution for all of it. Usually it's slowing down whatever's causing this reaction. So reducing your dosage, drinking more water, taking a binder. Sometimes you're just going too fast with the change in the body and you can't quite keep up with it. So you just have to slow it down. But I think it's great you mentioned it, because there is this, I see this sometimes this huge emotional reaction, especially if you've never played around with this stuff, where you're like, oh my God, I did this thing and now I'm so sick and what have I done? And it's really not that crazy. It's just your body's healing. Like even when we get a flu, we think, oh, the flu made me tired. But it's not that. The virus is present and then your immune system is reacting with some inflammatory agents, and that's what's making you achy and tired and stuff. So all those little symptoms are just part of the unwinding. You should not stay in them though. I'm never a fan of just push through that detox and keep going with your dosage. I'm always back off, because when you have that feeling, you aren't keeping up. It's too much for you to handle. So you need to adjust it with your practitioner, or just back off a bit. Or maybe, like you said, it's just a bad day. When you're doing a detox program where you give up coffee and start eating clean, usually a few days in or right away even, you might crash because you're not used to having no caffeine. That's a big one for people. It's pretty shocking when they usually have caffeine to go to none. So they're usually having some headaches and stuff, and it will pass. And sometimes we'll have people have a few sips of caffeine that's really clean, just to it's better to reduce caffeine slowly than to just cold turkey, you're probably going to get a headache from the change in like vascular pressure. So yeah, you can have, little symptoms. It's just like, say you go to work out and you haven't worked out in a while. You're going to be sore if you do a lot. And we know this. But with detox and diet changes, we still tend to get like up in arms, like, why is this feeling off?
I like that analogy of working out, but like you said, when we're working out initially, we know we're going to be sore for a couple of days. But if you're in a lot of pain and it lasts for more than a couple of days, you've overdone it. And it's the same thing with detoxing, right? Expect a couple of symptoms initially and it should go away. But if it's not, then you've overdone it with the detoxing as well.
Yeah.
So another way to detox are saunas, infrared saunas and in-home saunas. I know that some gyms and spas have saunas as well. Can you talk a little bit about the saunas and are those beneficial for detox? Is that something we should be considering and looking into?
Yeah, there's so much research on sauna that's really positive. The kind of traditional sauna was more of a Finnish sauna, or even I think like a sweat lodge in Native American. It's kind of like a sauna in a way. So there's a lot of traditional uses. Even Finnish saunas have been studied to show for detox benefits, like cardiovascular health benefits. Saunas help you adapt. They release these things called heat shock proteins in your cells that will repair or kill off damaged cells. They support your immune system. They get you into parasympathetic, like de-stressing mode, circulation, and definitely detox. So if you're going to do an infrared sauna, far infrared is more detoxifying. You can kind of remember that term. I used to just tell people go to the gym because it's cheaper and like if you can decide if you want to buy a sauna, but now you can't really do that with COVID. So you can buy a sauna blanket, is a lot cheaper, like $500. There's some that are like tents that are probably $100 to $200. They might have a little more EMF and stuff, but really any way you can get to sweat does have benefit. There's a difference though between like running and sweating and relaxing and sweating. So when you're exercising and you sweat, it's to control your temperature. And you're actually in some oxidative stress to be running and exercising. Whereas being in a sauna, you're regulating your temperature, but it's a different mechanism because your body is relaxed and it's going to get even more relaxed and it facilitates more repair. So I will say like sweating on a run is different than sweating in a sauna. And I'm a big fan. All my mold clients are required to sauna. And sometimes, I think with them, I tell them at least 4 times a week. That's kind of ideal because it helps your body, I don't know, I guess like reacting quicker. And you get more like sensitized to the sauna experience when you do it more often. But if you only make it in there, if you're just doing it for general health, you only make it in 1 or 2 times a week. It's not the end of the world. It's still beneficial, but kind of the more the better if you can do it while you read a book or even do a little work or whatever, or you meditate or you kind of take a little nap. It's great to get it in. And yeah, it has tons of benefits. So whatever way you can get it in is great. There is more research now as they've come up with like far infrared technology that's for detoxing. Mid-infrared is more for like muscle pain, weight loss, and then near infrared is more superficial for like skin scarring, like more shallow, pain or injury. So that's kind of can give you an idea of each one.
Wow, that's so interesting. I recently bought one of those portable ones that are infrared, and I just sit and watch a Netflix show while I'm sweating.
Yeah, that's what we do a lot at our house too. Ours is actually in the TV room. So, it's like, why not? You're just laying there anyways.
Why not? And when I was going to the gym, I couldn't take any electronics with me. It just putting headphones on. It was just painful, and I'm sure really bad for me that I'm here, and my whole head is covered and there's electronics around me. That shouldn't have been a good combination, but I like this and that outside of me could be my little tablet and I could watch Netflix while I'm relaxing inside my little sauna.
Yeah, yeah, I'm a big fan. When I bought mine, I was already a fan, but I was like nervous about making the investment. Am I really going to use it? But I still use it, and my son uses it, and yeah, I think it's a great investment if people are thinking about it.
It is. So knowing what you know now about everything, acupuncture, detoxification, Chinese medicine, all of your background, what would you tell your younger self about detoxification and just healthcare in general?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I started to study acupuncture and Chinese medicine fairly young, in my 20s. But I would say it's a system of medicine that was sort of established before modern toxins and technology and stuff were all invented. So, yeah, I'm just thankful like I've learned that layer of, I think we think about what's good and bad to eat, but it's also like, it's really like what's toxic versus not toxic to eat, or to buy things in your home. Like, I'm much more aware of when I make a purchase, what's it made out of? Is it going to be off-gassing? So I guess I'd tell my younger self, or if I had known this as I was going to acupuncture school, that it's a really influential part of health, our environment, whether it's our home furnishings or the food, or like what is the mental health like environment we're putting ourselves in. That can affect you so much if you're in an unhealthy relationship, or you hate your job, or whatever it is. So all that environmental stuff is just so critical to how you feel every day. And I guess I just say I would go back and say that make sure you're paying attention to all that and putting that first, because that often a lot will fall into place when you do that.
Definitely good advice for your younger self. I think if we all could do better, we would have if we knew back then what we know now, right?
Yeah.
So where can people find you and connect with you if they want to reach out?
Yeah, my website is just my name, bridgitdanner.com. And we have a pretty robust blog. We put out a new blog at least once a week. And then we have a whole page of free resources where I have like that green morning drink, and we've got, a food book and a side effect book. And so we have a bunch of free ebooks if you want to peruse those. And yeah, it's all in my name, which is bridgitdanner.com.
And you're also on YouTube. You have some videos on there as well, or?
Yeah, I think it's Hormone Detox Shop is our YouTube name. But yeah, that coffee enema video is my most popular video on YouTube. And just so you know, I don't show my butt or anything going into it. I just kind of walk. But it just shows that people are curious. It's certainly not like the hallmark of my career, but I think it's just something that people are very curious about. So I think it's great.
Well, that's how I found you, and I found it very interesting. And you really explained it step by step in a way that, because I've mentioned it to my patients before, but it's kind of hard to explain. And then here's a video that you don't show anything personal. You show the process. You show where to hang your coffee enema, and you show the tub, and it's nothing invasive. So
yeah, I think it gets people more comfortable, and I'm sure in your practice too, it's like everything seems scary until you break it down into just like, okay, first step, buy your coffee and your bag. Okay, step one done. Now it's like, then it takes a lot. I'm writing a book right now, and it's a lot, and I could be very overwhelmed, but I'm like, this is step by step, and this is our timeline, and we just sit on our chair and get our writing done. So when you take all that out of it and just take it like step by step, you realize it's not so crazy.
Well, for me, it was great because I didn't have to make that video. You already had done it. So thank you.
Yeah, you just share it. Yeah. Awesome.
Well, thank you so much for having this conversation with me and making the time. I really appreciate it.
It was really fun.